We are live. Welcome, everyone. We are live on LinkedIn. We're live on YouTube. We're here for the Agency Hour by Quickly Hire. So if you're watching, go ahead and say hi in the comments so we know you're here. I'll pull the comments up so I can see. And if you have any SEO questions, so we are going to be talking today with Lindsay and learning about Google core updates and understanding that and getting a better feel and understanding of the Google algorithm and all of that. But if you have any other general SEO questions, feel free to throw those in the comments and we can get to those. So those can come in at any time and we'll get to them at the end. And yeah, feel free to say hi. So welcome to the Agency Hour presented by Quickly Hire. The Agency Hour is a space that was created for agency owners to come and learn from experts in their field. So these webinars and discussions are designed to help you boost your revenue, sharpen your skills, and fuel growth in your business. Today, we are joined by Lindsay Halsey, who is co-founder of Pathfinder SEO. And like I said, we're going to be digging into Google core updates, their impact, and how you can prepare your clients for that impact and try to, whether it's negate the impact or leverage the impact or whatever that looks like. So we'll be talking about all of that. But first, Quickly Hire is the fastest way to add vetted freelancers to your team. So at Quickly Hire, we understand the importance of assembling top-tier talent for your business. Whether you need a developer, content marketer, designer, virtual assistant, or any other technical or creative professional, we've got you covered. We have SEO specialists in there now. That's the topic of today. Paid ad experts, social media managers, really a whole array of talent, and we're always building that out. So feel free to reach out and let us know what you're looking for and see if we can help. Our freelancers work with you for a set number of hours weekly, and you pay a set monthly retainer. So there's no hidden costs, no setup fees, nothing like that. Just a set month-to-month retainer that you pay so you can have all your finances as expected. So we take care of all the sourcing, vetting, interviews, compliance, payroll, international fund transfers, and all the other administrative headaches that go along with hiring and managing a distributed team. We take care of that. So reach out to us at quicklyhire.com to learn more. All right, let's get to Lindsay. So Lindsay is the Pathfinder SEO co-founder. Pathfinder SEO, if you're not familiar, we've had Lindsay on several times. She does this on a monthly basis with us on SEO. So it is a software that gives agencies a system to market, sell, and deliver SEO services without feeling overwhelmed. So that's the big part there. And with Pathfinder SEO, you can increase recurring revenue, close more sales, get closer to your clients, and empower junior team members to deliver SEO services. So that's huge as well. So welcome, Lindsay. It's really good to have you here.
Thanks so much, Emily. Excited to be back and talking about a topic that many people ask questions about, all around Google's core updates and algorithm changes and how we stay on top of all the things that evolve in the world of SEO.
Yes, I can't wait to get into this. I'm going to go ahead and remove my video feed, so I'll leave you to it, and we'll share your screen when you're ready. So
Okay.
If anyone has comments, I'll be watching the chat. Put your questions in there, and we'll get those to Lindsay.
Awesome. Let's go ahead. I'm going to fire up my slides here. And as always, we'll be kind of moving around between a couple of different tabs, trying to keep this as interesting and involved here as we can. So I want to start with something that I think we can kind of all agree on, which is a sentiment that it feels like Google is constantly changing the rules of the game. And for most people, this is frustrating because we are investing in building traffic and building marketing from our Google efforts. And all of a sudden, the rules of the game change, and it can be a little bit scary because it makes us feel like we are really subject to Google's whims. And I think when I think about SEO and how dynamic it is, I think back to when I used to just start in SEO, and I would look at my clients' monthly reports, and I worked for an agency that was really big, and I had 20 clients under my umbrella, and I would look at their monthly reports and feel like I was going to get fired by the client and lose the client account if traffic went down. And so if I didn't show just month over month steady growth for all of time, my assumption was essentially that I would just lose the client, and then ultimately I would lose my job because my job was to serve these clients. And what was sort of concerning in that environment is, as I wrapped my head around how SEO works, I just felt like it was so dynamic, and there were things that I didn't have total control over. And I learned over time that I didn't lose clients when they didn't have positive growth and traction, because I learned how to better communicate about all that is dynamic about SEO and help to identify what's happening when results go up, down, sideways, whatever they might be doing. And so when we think about all the different sort of levers that make SEO dynamic, I think about a couple of different things. The first is that your business or your client's business evolves. So we make changes in our business that are going to shift the opportunity space in the world of SEO. For example, if you work with a local business client and they add a new location in a new target market, all of a sudden they've created a growth opportunity. There's a new keyword space that we can go out and pursue. On the other hand, if you work with a client that gets rid of a division or gets rid of a component of their business, all of a sudden your opportunity space gets smaller. And I think about a vacation rental and real estate company that I used to work with, and all of a sudden they just got rid of the real estate arm of their business. And so all of a sudden we were no longer pursuing or getting any exposure for any keyword related to real estate and homes for sale. And the only C we were playing in was vacation rentals. And so as that client's business evolved, all of a sudden our opportunity space got much smaller. So that can impact the trajectory of your client's traffic. The next, and what we're going to really focus on today, is that the algorithm, the thing that calculates who's number 1 and who's number 100, essentially can transform and apply changing weights to differing systems. And so I think a good concept behind Google search algorithm, really all the search engine algorithms out there, is that they're enormously complex, they're ever evolving, and they're proprietary. We don't get to know exactly what's in them and how they work. But what we do know is that underneath this concept of there being an algorithm is another concept of there being individual systems. And the systems essentially can come together and be a component of this algorithm. So an example of this system, and something we'll talk a lot more about today, is how does Google identify when content is helpful and reward websites with helpful content? So there's a whole system there. There are other systems in the algorithm that might look at user behavior, what the click-through rates look like from the search engine results page, and be able to pull that data and understand that and then apply that into the broader algorithm. So the algorithm changes. The layout of the search engine results page can shift. And so when we think about doing a search on Google, you do a search one day and we can go and actually jump in and do a search. So if your client gets a lot of traffic for a keyword like things to do in Denver, we know that the layout of this page is going to influence click-through rates. And so right now, the layout of the page has 4 paid ads at the top. It has this little info box over on the right-hand side. And then it has this top sites in Denver and the opportunity to expand it before we ever get to the top 3 organic search listings. And so sometimes if you think about the Google search results page as being somewhat built in blocks, sometimes we see different blocks get sort of different weights. Sometimes the organic results might be above this top sites section, in which case they're higher on the page and click-through rates go up. At other times we see things like people also ask or discussion and forum information all coming in at different places. And so the layout of this page can make it so that I could stay, say, number 1 in the keyword rankings, but actually be further or higher up the page. And that's going to be something that is dynamic that I don't have control over. Another thing that can make SEO dynamic is simply that our competitors or our clients' competitors can change. So if a competitor, there's a new competitor, if somebody comes out and starts really investing in SEO, there's the other piece of the puzzle that makes this really dynamic world that we live in. And so when I think about how do we handle this dynamic world, why do we even invest in SEO if it's so kind of slippery to wrap our head around what's happening, then one of the ways that we can do this is take what we consider a holistic approach to SEO. So we can say, okay, instead of chasing short-term things, instead of looking for shortcuts or following like little hidden tricks and things, we're going to take a real world marketing approach to SEO. We're going to invest in the things that we know Google values, like having a technically sound website that's secure and fast, to having great content that's super helpful, that contextually has all that on-site optimization included so that Google can better understand the content. And then we're going to invest in genuine real-world ways to build trust and authority around our business by doing things like getting a verified Google Maps listing and getting real reviews on it, or kind of working with partners to collaborate to get more backlinks between different sites that are genuine partners and in the real world really do work together. So to me, with this frame in mind, we basically remove all of these challenges of SEO being dynamic because we say we're going to take this steady approach. It's going to build on itself. It's going to snowball and accumulate, and we're building our long-term marketing capital. And we're not going to have to worry down the road that Google changes its algorithm because we've invested in the good stuff, the stuff that makes sense, that you could communicate to a team member or your client, and they'd say, okay, I understand why I need more reviews on Google Maps, or I understand why site security matters. So this is the approach that we really teach at Pathfinder, and in a way to kind of approach SEO in a really long-term way that makes it so we don't wake up and worry that, oh my goodness, everything's going to fall apart if Google has an algorithm update that doesn't favor my client's website. And another sort of frame to be thinking about in this lens is this idea of taking an audience-first approach to SEO. So when we do that, we identify the audience and we say, okay, we're going to just create stuff that is really helpful for our intended audience, our customer base, our prospect base. We're going to understand their challenges. We're going to create content that is genuinely helpful for that audience, and it's powered by genuine expertise and experience. And we're just going to be helpful. And that this audience-first approach to SEO also is a really future-proof strategy. So we can be doing all of these things, but then we still want to be mindful and want to be able to understand what happens when Google has a core update or an algorithm update. Because even if we're taking a holistic approach to SEO, we still may be impacted for better or worse by when the algorithm changes, and we want to be able to understand and communicate that. So within a Google Core update, the best way to understand what these are significant broad changes to Google search algorithms and systems that are designed to support Google's mission to present helpful and reliable results for searchers. So it's sort of when an update comes out, it goes across all countries, across all searches. It is at the root of Google's algorithm. And we have, information about these core updates. The first is that they generally occur several times a year, and they take days or weeks to roll out. So Google sort of rolls out a core update, and it doesn't just happen in like an instant. The internet is big, Google is big, and so it can take days or weeks to roll out. So there's a little bit of a slow roll on sort of seeing how a website performs within the backdrop of a core update going live. The other is that these generally don't target specific pages or sites, so they're not industry specific. There are other Google updates that really target specific things and specific types of websites. And so sometimes it's an industry space that will get sort of an algorithm update that really looks at trying to enhance the results in that sort of ecosystem that those industries play in. But with core updates, we're talking about everybody and all sites. And these really can lead to traffic increases, decreases, or no change for a website. So it can be positive or negative, or just totally neutral for your clients' websites. And one of the things that we need to do as marketers is understand when the updates occur in the first place. So like, how do we stay in touch with these things happening? And one of the best ways, although it's not something I necessarily sit down and check every single day, is Google has a search status dashboard. So if you're sort of trying to get caught up in this world of the search status things, you can go to this Google search status dashboard and you can see the history of everything that's going up and then everything that Google is reporting of happening. And so here you can see that so far this year, we've had one public core update in March 2024. And then there have been 2 other algorithm updates that are more spam oriented. So they're looking at, spammy practices and are a little different than a core update. And you can see basically how long it took for this to roll out. And so this core update took 45 days to fully roll out. So it was like mid-April. And what does that mean? One of the things it means is Google sort of starts rolling out this very sizable update. And you can imagine that some things go well and some things, need to be titrated again, or in the real world out there, there may be some evolution. And so if we think about a core update as having maybe different weights to some of these different systems as one of the concepts behind this, you can imagine that Google might sort of overdo it a little bit and then start to pull back, or might add to, sort of like adding spices to your cooking. Like you might put too much salt in and then have to kind of come up with a way to pull that back. Or alternatively, you might say, hey, this needs more salt and pepper. And so they're titrating sort of to effect over this time period. So that's one way to know what's going on in the world of search. Google doesn't always publish things super timely, or sometimes it sort of breaks that some of the leading SEOs out there start to talk about, hey, I think there's been a big change in Google and here's why. And then later Google sort of follows up. Other times Google tells us the update is coming. And so, there's even some lead time. But a lot of how you stay sort of up to date on that is just basically search engine land or search engine journal, any kind of blog publications, signing up for email newsletters and things like that are a great way to know essentially, hey, this is happening in case you want to sort of dig into it more. There are probably a handful of Google updates you've already heard of. And maybe, I don't store this kind of information in my head. We're more in the here and now, which is that we're in sort of a series of these helpful content updates. And that really rewards this concept of audience first content or audience first marketing. But before that, in 2022, we had updates around EEAT, so rewarding expertise, experience, authority, and trust. We had Penguin and Panda back in the 10-ish years ago, and they looked at things like thin content or link building and keyword stuffing and sort of different schemes. And so these are some of the noteworthy Google updates that have gotten named, like Panda and Penguin. Some of these updates that come out are essentially unnamed and not even announced. So these are just some of the more noteworthy ones. The most recent update, as we talked about, was in March 2024. So this is fully rolled out, and you and your clients' websites are fully seeing the impact of this over the last few months. And really, the March update was deemed in advance more complex than the usual core updates and involves changes to multiple core systems. It marked an evolution in how Google identified the helpfulness of content. So really, when we look at this update, it focused a lot on user experience. So putting that audience first, having great user experience. It looked at content quality and relevance. And so these were just different kind of components that got strengthened in this algorithm update earlier in March and April. And when we have an update or just traffic changes, it doesn't have to be as the result of an algorithm update. One of the things that we want to be able to do and digest is or follow is sort of a framework for this change. So we want to identify the what, the when, the why, and the how. And when I think about this, the first thing that I like to do is identify the what. What changed? Did traffic increase, decrease, or stay the same? What? And we need to know when this occurred. So did it traffic increase, decrease, or stay the same? And what is the time period I'm looking at? Is it comparing to last year, the previous month? Is it sort of a slow trajectory that your client might be on of a slow decrease, or is there a cliff? Were they on the rise and then things flattened out, etc.? And when we identify these things, we can start to ask ourselves if the timing correlates to anything sort of beyond the website. So when we understand the what and the when, we can start to try to understand, like, why did the traffic change? Was there an algorithm update? Did the business change? Did demand for our clients' products and services change? So is it sort of a down period in the economy or the industry that they're working in? These are things underneath the why. And once we understand the what, the when, and the why, we can really identify how our strategy is going to evolve, and if we're going to need to take any focused action. So are there things we need to go and do to build traffic back up, or is there an opportunity here, if we're already on the rise, to be even more accelerative on that rise? So this is sort of the framework that we like to follow at our agency when we're looking at change. And this is really what our clients pay us for. In this world where we feel like sometimes that there are tools that AI can like replace essentially, or help us do faster. This kind of stuff is really where the strategic, deep thinking, problem solving component of SEO comes in. This is where the high value and when you can charge more significant retainers for SEOs, when you're willing to dig into this stuff. And so when we're trying to do the why, we want to basically debug a traffic change. Is it an algorithm update? Is it seasonality? I could call that like a micro change. So maybe summer in some industries is a stronger period, like in like the travel industry. In the SEO industry space, summer is a little slow, like SEO services. Our clients are just sort of humming along. They're taking more vacations, et cetera. So demand for our agency services tend to go down in the summer and then really pick back up like November and again in January. And so seasonality could be at play. Demand at the macro level could also be at play. So instead of just seeing like summer is not as strong as fall, for instance, we might see a demand across a macro level, meaning like the entire economy is down. Maybe an election year would be an example where demand might get impacted in a more sizable way across the entire year, and it's not just seasonal change. We have those search engine results page or SERP layout shifts. So has something changed in our client's keyword space where their number 1 ranking or their number 5 ranking just isn't what it used to be? Do we have accurate tracking? And really, I should put this at the top of the list, because sometimes when I open a report and I see a major shift in performance, and I'm just going to pull in a monthly SEO report I was just looking at as kind of an example. If all of a sudden in our traffic, we see things go way down in a monthly report type context, one of the things we want to ask ourselves is just simply, hey, did we somehow goof up the tracking code on the website? It's rarely the issue, but usually if there's like a cliff or something like really standoutish, maybe there was a site update and the plugin that installed Google Analytics got turned off. And so all of a sudden mid-month, our Google Analytics traffic went off. So once in a while, you have that panicky moment of like, things are way down. And then you go in and you dig a little deeper and you figure out that it's just simply inaccurate tracking that's leading to those results. And on that same, avenue, once in a while, we see a technical issue with a site that can lead to those decreased results. And I'm going to pull up, I think I can showcase this one. It's the first of the month. So we're looking at a few reports. Let me see if that'll load here on the fly for us. It's thinking. And so I'm going to pull up the site and just kind of showcase Aspen Guide Service. So on this site, I noticed that it wasn't ranking very well, that traffic was down, and it was down in really pretty sizably in the month of June and early July. And I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Why is traffic down? And so kind of just going through a couple issues, the tracking code was on the site, no issue. But I came in and I noticed along the way that it was the homepage that was really down in volume. And I went and I looked at the homepage and I looked at the tagging, and there was a canonical URL on here that was pointing to a staging site. And it came out of actually the hosting company. It was not a setting in Yoast that we made. And it wasn't, it was totally external, but it came from the hosting side, was pointing essentially the power of this URL over to a staging environment. And the staging environment, we had told Google not to index. So Google just wasn't really showing the site, the homepage very well for this website. So once in a while, when we look at like things going on, inaccurate tracking and technical issues with a site are things to be thinking about. Another good example on the technical issue with a site would be like that little checkbox under reading in WordPress, where if you check the box, it tells the search engines not to index the website. Sometimes we see, web designers or somebody launch a new WordPress site, they don't uncheck that box. And so all of a sudden, a new website kind of falls off the map with Google. And it's just because there's a technical issue. We're telling Google not to index the website. So in addition to sort of following this framework for change as like one little tool in your tool shed, having this list sort of present is another really helpful way to start to look at the why. And when we're looking at the why, we're utilizing tools like Google Analytics and the Google Search Console and our big picture understanding of the when and what's happening in the business. And when we combine all of this, we can often identify the why in an accurate way. Sometimes we have to talk to the client about it because they might have other insights, and they're going to be pretty interested to invest in discussing this with you. Sometimes we find there can be two things at play, which can be sort of a perfect storm for the better or for the worse. If it's like two things going in your favor, the website's doing really well, for instance, in the helpful content update, and demand is up, you're going to see traffic go way up and you're going to be really excited. On the other hand, if the site's not doing that well with the helpful content update, and we're in a position where there's a decrease in demand, then things can really get scary and challenging, and you can get that perfect storm. So I wanted to show you an example of what does it look like when a site is resonating pretty well with kind of Google's algorithm updates. And this is a site that we sort of thought back in the early part of 2024 started to really perform well within the helpful content environment. So in those updates, particularly after you can see sort of the end there where May into June goes way up, we really started to see some strong performance from organic search. And it was because the content is written with genuine expertise and experience, and everything about the website is all about putting the audience first. And so this site has really excelled in that environment. On the other hand, here's a good example of a website not performing well after that update. And you can see what I mean by sort of, it's almost like a cliff. Right around the time of early March, organic search traffic went way down. And you have to kind of look and say, okay, that is a strong reason to believe that it could be the algorithm update, but kind of dig in a little deeper to make sure. And when these things happen, what we want to do is evolve our strategy. We want to move from understanding the what, the when, and the why to the how do we change? What are we going to do differently? What is going to resonate more with whatever's happening from an algorithmic standpoint? And we're not evolving our strategy like throwing away this holistic approach to SEO and no longer investing in technical content on-site and off-site. But rather, we're going to kind of dig into it all and try to take incremental actions to sort of test our hypotheses about what we can do to evolve it. And so the first thing we like to do is to take a step back and try to remove the emotion behind the change. And so to give you this as a little bit more of a case study, this drop in traffic was Pathfinder's own website. And we work, in our agency with like 50 clients, and none of our clients were negatively impacted by this core update. In fact, most of our clients' traffic looked a little bit like this. and everything was looking great. But then all of a sudden we came into Pathfinder and said, oh my goodness, this is, totally crazy. How can our own website not be performing well when we follow all the best practices and a holistic approach to SEO, et cetera? And so the first thing we have to do is take a step back and try to remove that emotion behind the change. Because the first reaction that most people have in these situations is it wasn't fair. It's not fair. I've been sort of classified in the wrong way by Google, or my site isn't being treated in a fair way. And we need to take a step back and remove that emotion and dig into the data, look in the Search Console, and try to use some tools that are going to help us provide an unbiased review. And so the tool that I used at the time was to actually turn to ChatGPT and say, okay, I think my hypothesis is that we were impacted by the helpful content update in a negative way, and I wonder if that's the case. And so, what we did is turn to ChatGPT, and I'm actually going to see if I can find. Here we go. I actually am going to find the exact ChatGPT thing I put in there. So this was back in May when we're like, okay, this is really a thing. And what I did is I took all of Google's documentation on what does it mean to have helpful content. So this content lives, let me just go find it, literally in Google's like public developer resources. So I took all of the questions here. And if you had asked me personally to answer these, I would have been like, yes, we did that. Yes, we did that. Everything in this is a yes. And instead, I just had ChatGPT sort of synthesize this into 5 categories. You can see the 5 categories. And then I said, okay, now evaluate this content on a scale of 0 to 10 for each category. Within each one, highlight 1 or 2 things we can do better. And so I copied the text, the exact text of a blog post that was particularly low performing after this update. And I dropped all of that in there. And then I came back and I got the scoring from ChatGPT. And I could come in here and look at like, okay, am I getting 7s, 8s, and 9s? What am I getting? And did I get some feedback that would really like kind of inform, what I think should happen? And so we did exercises like this and got some scores to see, hey, how are we doing in these areas? And this was the one that I thought was really interesting. Like the quality and the value of the content was scored at a 7 out of 10. And that's just not okay. We need to be in the 9 out of 10 in these categories. And so taking this sort of unbiased view allowed our team to go back and say, okay, our hypothesis is we're impacted by this algorithm update. We think that our content is just not shining through as being helpful enough to the audience. We got other signals along the way that some of our content was likely not sharing the fact that it was kind of written by an industry expert with genuine experience. The content was a little too rote. And so we actually went back in and we updated some old blog posts that were impacted by this. And here is an example of one of the ones that I updated. And I went back in. It took me, of course, I didn't get to it fast enough. So it was June. But the main thing that I did is I updated this intro paragraph and I put it more into the first person. And I tried to make it a little bit more like storytelling and relatable. And then I actually dialed back some of the SEO. So when I looked at it with a new lens, I started to feel like, you know what? I think I sort of over optimized this post. So I started to pull some of the like SEO back, if that makes sense. And of course, this post has popped right back up. It's become back to our top lead magnet. And is doing really well again in Google's algorithm. And so when we understand the what and the why and the when, we can start to create ideas on how to evolve the strategy. And we can start to basically test some of the impact of different actions. So that was one of the things that I wanted to do to see if that would help. The other thing that I've been wanting to do, and I also haven't gotten to, is build out better author profile pages. So Google wants to know sort of the who behind the content. And in this case, when you look at this, you're like, that doesn't tell me anything about the who behind the content. So needing to kind of build some better trust and authority into our author pages was one other idea of what we needed to do. But in general, we sort of admitted to ourselves that the reason our clients' websites were all doing really well in this world of the helpful content update is because our clients' websites, all of their blog content is powered by our copywriter. And our copywriter is a phenomenal writer, and she's not an SEO. Yes, she follows basic SEO best practices and uses the keywords that we kind of mentioned to her, but she doesn't overdo it. She has a great writing style, and it's really shining through in our clients' websites where she creates the content. Well, it turns out when I create the content, I am an SEO and I'm not a good writer. And so when I create the content, that content tends to not showcase that expertise and experience, get a little over optimized, and it's just not scoring as well with Google, even though it's not generated by AI. And so when we kind of take these steps back and then we take these incremental actions, we can really figure out and measure, hey, is this moving us in the right direction? Did we figure out what the problem was? And are we taking the steps to fix it? The other big thing along this is that we want to communicate early and often. We don't want to just leave this to somebody else to catch up on, like, wow, we're way down. We want to say, hey, early signals suggest, that this is what's happening. Here are reasons of what we think is the why, and here are the steps that we're taking to turn these results around. When you take that framework, you don't lose clients in times of down traffic. You actually build those relationships even stronger. And so that communicating early and often, even if you don't have the perfect answer or total confidence, you can kind of say, hey, these are the things I think are going on, and here's how we're going to test if that's true. So I hope that in this kind of talk so far that you can see that basically in the world of SEO, one mindset is that SEO is constantly changing, and that sort of takes the frustrating side of the coin. On the other hand, I think if you sort of change the mindset a bit and look at it as that SEO is constantly evolving, it becomes a lot more under your control. You don't lose any sleep over these things. And you can really try to evolve with the search engines by just continuing to invest in that holistic, steady Eddie, real world marketing that impacts the organic search results and helps to drive traffic today, tomorrow, and in the months to come. So here's my contact info. We have plenty of time left for questions, whether it's on this topic or just anything in the world of SEO. And thanks so much for being here. Oh, Emily, you're muted still.
There we go. Thank you so much, Lindsay. That was a great presentation. I learned a lot. I know that Google algorithm updates, the core updates, they can be scary for a lot of folks in this industry, especially if you're not an SEO, right? It's kind of like, oh no, what do I do? Or I love that you showed the chart of Pathfinder SEOs kind of jump off a cliff, right? When an update happens. So it's great to know, you're not alone out there when these things happen, and when it happens, like how to look into it, what to do, remove the emotion from it. I loved that. I wanted to ask, I'm gonna bring the screen share down for a minute. First of all, if anyone has questions, you can put them in the comments and we'll get to those. And we haven't had any come in right now, but until we do, and if we do, I've got a few questions. So I wanted to start with just a general kind of approach to what are some key strategies, and you went over this in the presentation, but what are some key strategies that agency owners can implement to ensure their clients' websites remain resilient and continue to rank well following Google's core updates? So what are some things they could do proactively to hopefully not be so turbulent in those times?
Yeah, so there are a lot of things that a lot of web designers are basically already doing. And so keeping a website secure and reasonably fast, it doesn't have to be lightning fast, with good usability, where it's just like easy to navigate. It feels good when you go to the website, etc. So that is sort of, to me, like the bottom tier of this pyramid of success, is like we just have to really like have those core basics super dialed. The next sort of layer in this is going to be all about content. And not all of our clients can invest in ongoing content marketing, et cetera. But we do want to make sure that the content and the copywriting on the website serves the audience. So if you are in the intended audience, is this content genuinely helpful, et cetera? Or is it, content that was just created for SEO, or is it too thin? You go to clients' websites. We work with an art gallery, and I've worked with them for 10 years. There's still like literally not a word on their homepage other than like the footer saying the name of the brand. I cannot convince them to move away from just a visual, page. So this idea of like, well, that's probably not going to do that well in the world of the search engines. We really want to just kind of think about content and the use of words. And that's sort of the middle part of this tier. And then the icing on the cake that's really, required is like, how do we show the genuine trust and authority that are behind a business, that are behind your client's business? Because we know that if we have a great website with great content, but no external context around the business. So think of a brand new website that you launch for a business. Google's not going to index it because they've never heard of this company. There's like nothing else about it out there on the internet other than this beautiful website that you made. They're not going to show it in the search results until there's a sense of trust and authority being built. And so how do we create some of those signals in a really genuine way? The first and like low hanging fruit would be something like a Google Maps listing that like puts a dropper physically on a map and provides a portal for real people and real customers to leave feedback in terms of reviews. That's going to build a signal of trust around a business, particularly if it's local. And then the next would be leveraging real world partnerships that show how the business does business. So, at one point, I worked with an e-commerce business. They had been like a physical like storefront, and they moved into the e-commerce space. And when I asked them like, okay, well, we have to go like leverage some partnerships and get some links into this new e-commerce website. Like, there's nothing out there about you guys. Like, are you on a board of directors? Do you go to conferences? Like, they had nothing. And like, okay, well, we have to have something. Like, you have to go join the Chamber of Commerce. Like, you've got to get out of just, operating in total isolation, because Google understands information about a business based on the ecosystem it lives in. And so, when I think about like Quickly Hire and Pathfinder, well, there are tons of online signals out there between our websites that we, are business partners, and that we like link to each other and invite each other on different webinars and things like that. And in each case, there are mentions with links, et cetera. And it builds this concept of sort of this cloud of like, who is in the ecosystem of this business entity, and you build trust together. And so that's, to me, really like the concept behind that. Really, once you get your client thinking about that and saying, okay, I'm not going to go buy links or do something that seems like SEO. What I'm going to do is like take my real world marketing and make sure Google can pick up on it. So real world marketing is going to, an event or something like that and having a booth and sponsoring. Well, does Google know you're the sponsor of that, event or conference? Let's make sure. And just those kind of basics go a long way.
Absolutely. Those are great tips. I love that. And then along with that, if you have all those bases covered, let's say like that's the core, right, of a successful website, successful online business. How much attention should agency owners be giving to Google core updates, and how much importance should they be placing on those? And when people say, oh, watch out, there's a new update, what should the reaction be?
So to be honest, my reaction is generally speaking like, okay, great. Like I just sort of read about it. I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. It's usually a little bit more of the same, or we knew it was coming. So like, oh, Google likes helpful content. They liked helpful content last month. They liked it last year. So much of it is, to me, like business as usual. I don't like clear my calendar and start to like watch the results. I don't get into my rank tracking software and like spend oodles of time like looking at it. What we do is really for our clients that are on a monthly retainer with us, we basically watch the results in the months after the change, and we try to like see, do we think there's any impact of the algorithm? Like, are we seeing any signals that they were impacted by what was going on in March? Is their content resonating more or less with Google's algorithms around helpfulness? And so, with Pathfinder, for example, we didn't like pick that up or do anything about it, because that's honestly like one of the first times one of these algorithm updates has actually had a sizable impact on in a negative way on traffic. Usually it's on the upswing side because Google's rewarding like that real world marketing that you're doing. And so usually it's a positive thing. And we're just trying to like pat ourselves on the back with our clients so that they know that, hey, this is in your favor because we're moving you in this trajectory. But if this happens, you just kind of want to get after it in the why and take that like what, why, when, how approach and turn things around. And I will say that sometimes we've seen clients have weird, I mean, we all the time see like weird search results and things that'll pop up. One time we had a client who was like one page got penalized. So their pet friendly rentals page fell off the map of Google, and it was like a little cliff, but only on one page. And so we had to go dig in the what, why, when, how, and there was something going on there, and their content had gotten scraped and something malicious had happened out there. And so our fix in the end was literally, we just rewrote and put fresh content on the page, and it popped back to the top of the search results overnight. And so even if you're doing the right thing, it doesn't mean externally all the right things are happening. Like there can be like malicious actions and spam and other things. And I think the biggest, piece of advice is just like, once you identify it, just systematically go through it and know that whatever it is, it's recoverable. And you probably didn't really do anything deeply malicious or anything to cause it. Like our content on Pathfinder, like I said, it was just written by somebody who's not a good writer, and knows too much about SEO and not enough about good writing. So if I had just had a copywriter get in there and take, my concept and put it into words, we probably wouldn't have been in the same spot.
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. If anyone watching has any questions, now's the time. We're going to be wrapping things up here. We will be back again next month with Lindsay. So stay tuned. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe so you'll get notified of that. If you're watching on LinkedIn, follow our page. If you're watching on YouTube, go follow our page as well, because you'll see the updates there too. And without seeing any questions coming in, thank you everybody for joining us today. This is a great conversation and great learning experience about Google Core Updates. Now, none of us who have been here today, or if you're watching the recording, have to freak out the next time it happens. Just do the right things on your website and you should be fine, right? And have the alerts set up. And Lindsay, in terms of Pathfinder SEO, is that something you're able to gauge and keep an eye on in there as well?
Yeah, so within Pathfinder, we have white label monthly reports, and that's really, to me, like the number one, like it's just having that monthly check-in. Things don't generally in SEO happen overnight. This is like a slow roll type situation. And so, yeah, it's in monthly reports that we generally, that are prepped for clients that give us a signal we need to dig in deeper here. And so the reporting gives you the what, like what is happening, and some of the when. But then generally speaking, we try to keep the reports pretty simple since you're sending them to your clients. We don't need to overwhelm them. But what they'll do is help you flag the what and the when and be like, you know what, I need to go in and look at this page, or I need to go in and look at this result, because looking at it, I don't have a why for it, or I have cause for celebration, or I have cause for concern. The biggest thing that for our clients we want to do is deliver that insight. So it's about being able to put the data, the what, into context. So yeah, Pathfinder's reporting is one of the ways that we see things. And we had a Pathfinder client, basically get her monthly report last month, and things were way down, like down to like 3 sessions or something. Like, okay, this isn't really possible. Like, you didn't fall off a cliff that was like into the ocean, like the site's live, what's going on here? And so, her first reaction, and it would have been mine too, was like, I've got to like get on a call. I need somebody else to help me look at it. Like, what am I going to do? I can't send this to the client. Well, it turns out it was that example of analytics just somehow got turned off on the website. So yeah, the business was fine. There was a reason the client had not picked up the phone and said like, I have no leads, I have no business, I have no sales. That was humming along just fine. It was the tracking code. And so that's the other piece at Pathfinder that we help with via our office hours and like one-on-one sessions and things like that. If you do find yourself in a sticky situation, it's helpful to be able to get just somebody else to look at it with you and be like, oh, I think this is what's going on, or to reconfirm your hypotheses before you deliver that insight to the client or start investing 10 hours on, updating content or something like that, just to build that confidence that, yep, you've kind of identified what we think is happening, and you have a good plan for the solution.
Absolutely. Yeah. Taking the emotion out of it. I loved that number one tip, right? So don't freak out. It's fixable. And a lot of times, yeah, it's just getting the snippet back into your header or whatever it is. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, surely it didn't drop to zero overnight. There's no way. So awesome. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Thank you everyone for watching. You guys can reach out to Lindsay if you have SEO questions, want to learn more about Pathfinder SEO, pathfinderseo.com, or Lindsay at pathfinderseo.com. So thank you everyone for joining. Is that right, Lindsay? Did I get that right?
That's all good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will see you all next month. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.